Rick Sanchez is one of the two eponymous characters from the Adult Swim animated television series Rick and Morty and resulting franchise. Created by Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon and voiced by the former, Sanchez is a misanthropic alcoholic scientist inspired by Christopher Lloyd's Dr. Emmett Doc Brown from Back to the Future and Reed Richards / Mr. Fantastic from Marvel Comics. In September 2021, Lloyd portrayed Sanchez himself in a series of promotional interstitials for the series. Known for his reckless, nihilistic behavior and pessimistic personality, the character has been well received. Rick C-137 is a sociopathic mad scientist who seems to know everything in the universe and thus finds life a traumatizing and pointless experience. Following the murder of his wife Diane and daughter Beth Sanchez in his native reality by his parallel self Rick Prime, Rick dedicates his life to hunting Prime down, developing interdimensional travel and building a wall around the segment of the multiverse where Rick is the smartest man in the universe, dubbed the Central Finite Curve, to narrow his search, massacring countless alternate versions of himself in the process of hunting down Prime before resigning himself to failure, founding the Citadel of Ricks out of the survivors, and retiring to move in with the family of an adult version of Beth from Prime's own native reality out of the slim hope of Prime one day returning so Rick could complete his vendetta, consisting of his son-in-law Jerry and teenage grandchildren Summer and Morty Smith, going on a series of adventures with the latter, over the course of which events in the first and fifth seasons lead to Morty and Summer having two children of their own, Mortimer Jr. and Naruto. The first 3 volumes of the Rick and Morty comic series follow the Rick and Morty of Dimension C-132 while most issues of subsequent volumes follow the main Rick and Morty from the television series, with the final volume and Rick and Morty Go to Hell following another alternate Rick identified as Devil Rick in the latter series, and featuring a girl Rick designed after cosplayer Santana Maynard by series writer Kyle Starks. The video game Pocket Mortys meanwhile follows the Rick and Morty of C-123. The main character Rick of the franchise and their alternative selves have received a positive critical reception. Premise and main characters. The show revolves around the adventures of the members of the Smith household, which consists of parents Jerry and Beth, their children Summer and Morty, and Beth's father, Rick Sanchez, who lives with them as a guest. According to Justin Roiland, the family lives outside of Seattle, Washington. The adventures of Rick and Morty, however, take place across an infinite number of realities, with the characters traveling to other planets and dimensions through portals and Rick's flying saucer. Rick is an eccentric and alcoholic mad scientist, who eschews many ordinary conventions such as school, marriage, love, and family. He frequently goes on adventures with his 14-year-old grandson, Morty, a kind-hearted but easily distressed boy, whose naive but grounded moral compass plays counterpoint to Rick's Machiavellian ego. Morty's 17-year-old sister, Summer, is a more conventional teenager who worries about improving her status among her peers and sometimes follows Rick and Morty on their adventures. The kid's mother, Beth, is a generally level-headed person and assertive force in the household, though self-conscious about her professional role as a horse surgeon. She is dissatisfied with her marriage to Jerry, a simple-minded and insecure person, who disapproves of Rick's influence over his family. Different versions of the characters inhabit other dimensions throughout the show's multiverse and their personal characteristics can vary from one reality to another. The show's original Rick identifies himself as Rick Sanchez of Earth Dimension C-137, in reference to his original universe, but this does not apply to any other member of the Smith household. For instance, in the first season episode Rick Potion No. 9, after turning the entire world population into monsters, Rick and Morty move to a different dimension, leaving the original Summer, Beth, and Jerry behind. Rick and Morty themselves also hail from different dimensions. The Season 5 finale Rick Murai Jack shows that the original Rick's original family was murdered by an alternate version of himself, with the Season 6 premiere Solarix revealing that this alternate Rick is Morty's biological grandfather instead of the one the show focuses on. Episodes. In May 2012, Adult Swim unveiled its development slate that included a Rick and Morty pilot from Harmon and Roiland, which was eventually picked up to series in October 2012, as one of the network's first primetime original shows. The first season premiered in December 2013 and concluded in April 2014. It comprised 11 episodes, and aired Mondays at 10:30 p.m. ET/PT. 2 months earlier, in February 2014, the show had been renewed for a second season, with the press release noting that Rick and Morty consistently outperformed direct competition in its time slot. Season 2 aired Sundays at 11:30 p.m. ET/PT, from July to October 2015, and comprised 10 episodes. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Roiland said that Rick and Morty will remain a big priority above anything else for him in the future, and expressed his intention to keep the show growing. Adult Swim renewed Rick and Morty for a third season in August 2015, shortly after a successful second season premiere. The two CO creators and executive producers expressed their delight at the series' popularity. The season premiered unannounced on April 1, 2017, as part of an April Fool's Day prank. The remaining episodes began airing weekly almost 4 months later, continuing in the same time slot from Season 2, and the initial airing concluded in October 2017. Although it was originally intended for the season to consist of 14 episodes, as a result of production delays it eventually comprised only 10. Following the conclusion of the show's third season, CO creators Harmon and Roiland wanted to have assurance that there would be many more seasons of Rick and Morty in the future, so that they would be able to focus on the show and minimize their involvement in other projects. Additionally, Harmon had expressed his wish for the upcoming fourth season to consist of more than 10 episodes. In May 2018, after prolonged contract negotiations, Adult Swim announced a long-term deal with the creators, ordering 70 new episodes over an unspecified number of seasons. Roiland was confident that this big renewal deal would allow the creators to minimize the gaps between seasons to no more than a year, as they would be able to schedule their time around the show and keep the machine going. In May 2019, the fourth season of Rick and Morty was announced to debut in November 2019. The fourth season consisted of 10 episodes split across 2 airings. The first 5 episodes began airing on November 10, 2019, while the remaining 5 episodes began airing on May 3, 2020. The sixth season premiered on September 4, 2022. Production. Development. Rick and Morty was created by Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon. The duo first met at Channel 101, a non-profit monthly short film festival in Los Angeles founded by Harmon. At Channel 101, participants submit a short film in the format of a pilot, and a live audience decides which pilots continue as a series. Roiland, then a producer on reality programming, began submitting content to the festival a year after its launch, in 2004. His pilots typically consisted of shock value sick and twisted elements that received a confused reaction from the audience. Nevertheless, Harmon took a liking to his humor and the two began collaborating. In 2006, Roiland was fired from working on a television series he regarded as intensely creatively stifling, and funneled his creative energies into creating a webisode for Channel 101. The result was the Real Animated Adventures of Doc and Marty, an animated short starring parodies of Doc Brown and Marty McFly, characters from the Back to the Future film trilogy. In the short, which Harmon would dub a bastardization, a pornographic vandalization, Doc Smith urges Marty that the solution to all of his problems is to perform oral sex on him. The audience reacted to it wildly, and Roiland began creating more shorts involving the characters, which soon evolved beyond his original intentions and their obvious origin within the film from which it was culled. Harmon would later create and produce Community, an NBC sitcom, while Roiland would work primarily in voice acting for Disney's Fishhooks and Cartoon Network's Adventure Time. In 2012, Harmon was briefly fired from Community. Adult Swim, searching for a more prime-time, hit show, shortly afterward approached Harmon, who initially viewed the channel as unfit for his style. He also was unfamiliar with animation, and his process for creating television focused more heavily on dialogue, characters, and story. Instead, he phoned Roiland to inquire if he had any ideas for an animated series. Roiland immediately brought up the idea of using the Doc and Marty characters, renamed Rick and Morty. Roiland initially wanted the show's run time to consist of one 11-minute segment, but Adult Swim pushed for a half-hour program. Harmon felt the best way to extend the voices into a program would be to build a family around the characters, while Adult Swim development executive Nick Weidenfeld suggested that Rick be Morty's grandfather. Having pitched multiple television programs that did not get off the ground, Roiland was initially very unreceptive to others attempting to give notes on his pitch. Prior to developing Rick and Morty, he had created 3 failed animated pilots for Fox, and he had begun to feel burned out with developing television. The first draft was completed in 6 hours on the Paramount Pictures lot in Dan Harmon's unfurnished Community office. The duo had broken the story that day, sold the pilot, and then sat down to write. Roiland, while acknowledging a tendency for procrastination, encouraged Harmon to stay and write the entire first draft. We were sitting on the floor, cross-legged with laptops, and I was about to get up and go home, and he said, "Wait, if you go home, it might take us 3 months to write this thing. Stay here right now and we can write it in 6 hours." He just had a premonition about that, recalled Harmon. Adult Swim was initially unsure of Roiland doing both voices, partially due to the undeveloped nature of the character of Morty. Harmon wrote 4 short premises in which Morty took a more assertive role and sent it to Mike Latso. Adult Swim placed a tamer TV 14 rating on the program, which initially was met with reluctance from the show's staff. The network's reason behind the rating was that it would soon begin broadcasting in prime time, competing with major programs. The theme song for Rick and Morty by Ryan Elder was originally used in a rejected Cartoon Network pilot Roiland made called Dog World, which was referenced in the episode Lawnmower Dog. Writing. Harmon has noted that the writer's room at the show's studio bears a striking resemblance to the one used for Community. In comparing the two, he noted that the writing staff of Rick and Morty was significantly smaller, and more rough and tumble verbally. The first season writing staff consisted of Roiland, Harmon, Tom Kaufman, Ryan Ridley, Wade Randolph, and Eric Acosta, while writer's assistant Mike McMahon was also given writing credit. Described as a very, very tiny little writer's room with a lot of heavy lifting from everybody, the show's writing staff, like many Adult Swim productions, is not unionized with the Writers Guild of America, though in 2022 production staff at Rick and Morty filed a petition for a union election with the National Labor Relations Board in a bid to join the Animation Guild. The writing staff first meets and discusses ideas, which evolve into a story. Discussions often include anecdotes from personal life as well as thoughts on the science fiction genre. After breaking the story, which consists of developing its consistency and logical beginning, middle, and conclusion, a writer is assigned to create an outline. Roiland and Harmon do a pass on the outline, and from there the episode undergoes several more drafts. The final draft of the script is last approved by either of the CO creators. Harmon has admitted that his perfectionism can sometimes be disruptive and cause writing schedule delays. For the most part, this was the reason why the third season of the show consisted of only 10 episodes instead of 14, as was initially intended. Many episodes are structured with use of a story circle, a Harmon creation based largely on Joseph Campbell's monomyth, or the hero's journey. Its two-act structure places the act break at an odd location in the stages of the monomyth, after the meeting with the goddess, instead of atonement with the father. Roiland has stated his and Harmon's intentions for the series to lack traditional continuity, opting for discontinuous storylines not bound by rules. He has also confirmed that the writers avoid revisiting old tropes from the show's past, in fear of that coming off as disingenuous fan service. In producing the series' first season, episodes were occasionally written out of order. For example, Rick Potion No. 9 was the second episode written for the series, but was instructed to be animated as the fifth, as it would make more sense within the series' continuity. Animation and voice recording. Animation for the show is done using Toon Boom Harmony, a vector-based 2D puppet software, which is a more economical option than traditional hand-drawn animation. The post-production work is done in Adobe After Effects, and background art is done in Adobe Photoshop. Production of animation is handled by Bardell Entertainment in Vancouver, Canada. Roiland's cartooning style is heavily indebted to The Simpsons, a factor he acknowledged in a 2013 interview, while also comparing his style to that of Pendleton Ward and J.G. Quintal. You'll notice mouths are kind of similar and teeth are similar, but I think that's also a stylistic thing that, all of us are kind of the same age, and we're all inspired by The Simpsons and all these other shows we're kind of subconsciously tapping into. John Kricfalusi's The Ren and Stimpy Show was another strong influence for Rick and Morty, which is why, according to Roiland, the small W-shaped mouths that the characters occasionally make is a reference to a similar expression that Ren frequently makes. Talking about the style guide the animators of the show have to follow, Season 3 art director Jeffrey Thompson explained that the characters are often drawn with odd or asymmetrical features, in order to avoid looking too normal to live in the Rick and Morty universe. When recording dialogue, Roiland does a considerable amount of improvisation, in order to make the characters feel more natural. Themes and analysis. Comedic style. The general formula of Rick and Morty consists of the juxtaposition of two conflicting scenarios: an extremely selfish, alcoholic grandfather dragging his grandson along for interdimensional adventures, intercut with domestic family drama. CO creator Dan Harmon has described the series as a cross between Matt Groening's two shows The Simpsons and Futurama, balancing family life with heavy science fiction. The series is inspired by British-style storytelling, as opposed to traditional American family TV stories. Harmon has stated that his inspiration behind much of the concept and humor for the series comes from various British television series, such as The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and Doctor Who. He figures that the audience will only understand developments from Morty's point of view, but stated, "We don't want to be the companions. We want to hang out with the Doctor, we idolize the Doctor, but we don't think like him, and that's really interesting." Occasionally, characters will acknowledge an episode's narrative or hint at the presence of a fourth wall, suggesting that they are aware of the fact that they are characters of a TV show. Thereunder, Troy Patterson of The New Yorker notes that Rick and Morty supplies an artful answer to the question of what follows postmodernism, a decadent regurgitation of all its tropes, all at once, leavened by some humanistic wistfulness. Sean Sebastian of Junkie says that the show can be both hilarious and deeply disturbing at the same time, as it excels at the intersection between big ideas, flippancy, and wit. Philosophy. The series addresses the insignificance of human existence as compared to the size of the universe, with no recognizable divine presence, as described by Lovecraft's philosophy of cosmicism. The characters of the show deal with cosmic horror and existential dread, either by asserting the utility of science over magic or by choosing a life in ignorant bliss. However, as Joachim Higendermans of Geeks notes, none of them appear able to handle the absurd and chaotic nature of the universe, as Jerry gets by through denial, and Rick is a depressed, substance-addicted, suicidal mess. Harmon describes Rick as a self-interested anarchist, who doesn't like being told what to do. He believes that the character's life on a larger scale has caused him mental illness, and opines that the knowledge that nothing matters while accurate gets you nowhere. Matthew Bulger of The Humanist notes that the creators of the series are trying to communicate the message that we need to focus on human relationships and not preoccupy our minds with unanswerable questions, in order to find a sense of purpose and live a better life. Eric Armstrong of The New Republic notes that Morty represents the audience, as he is mostly there to react to Rick's deranged schemes. The character is transformed by the truths he discovers during his interdimensional adventures with his grandfather. However, instead of sinking into depression, Morty accepts these truths that empower him to value his own life. International broadcast. The show is available to watch on Netflix in a number of countries, including Australia, while the first 4 seasons are available to stream in the United States on both Hulu and HBO Max. Following the conclusion of the show's 3rd season, Adult Swim made a live-stream marathon of Rick and Morty available to watch on its official website in select regions, hoping to dissuade viewers from watching other illegal live streams. In the United Kingdom, public service broadcaster Channel 4 outbid Netflix and began airing the series with Season 4, which represents its first pickup by an international television channel. Season 4 was originally scheduled to premiere on Channel 4 in January 2020. Viewer complaints resulted in the broadcaster moving the first episode forward to November 20 on E4. In Canada, the series initially premiered on Adult Swim on January 10, 2016, and in Quebec, it premiered on Teletoon's Teletoon La Nuit block on May 18, 2018. Home media. The 11-episode first season was released by Warner Home Video on DVD and Blu-ray on October 7, 2014. Special features include commentary and animatics for every episode, deleted scenes, behind-the-scenes featurette and commentaries by special guests Matt Groening, Robert Kirkman, Pendleton Ward, Al Jean, and others. The 10-episode second season was released on DVD and Blu-ray on June 7, 2016. Special features include behind-the-scenes, commentary, and animatics for every episode, deleted animatic sketches and a Plumbus Owner's Manual booklet. The 10-episode third season was released on DVD and Blu-ray on May 15, 2018. Special features include exclusive commentary and animatics for every episode, Inside the Episode, The Origins of Rick and Morty, and an exclusive Inside the Recording Booth session. On February 12, 2019, a set containing seasons 1-3 was released on DVD and Blu-ray. Uncensored versions of the show are also available to purchase on various digital platforms, including iTunes and Amazon, with the digital releases of each season containing bonus material. The digital release of the first season includes the 2013 Rick and Morty Comic-Con panel. The digital release of the second season includes the 2015 ATX Television Festival panel, and the digital release of the third season includes commentary on every episode, as well as 7 more short videos featuring CO creators Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland. Reception. Critical reception. Rick and Morty holds an average approval rating of 95% on review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes for the entire series. David Wygand of San Francisco Chronicle described it as offbeat and occasionally coarse. The takeaway here is that it works. He praised the animation direction by James McDermott for being fresh, colorful, and as wacky as the script, and states that the series possesses shades of Futurama, South Park, and even Beetlejuice, ultimately opining that its humor felt entirely original. Neil Genslinger of the New York Times praised the series and stated that it was grandparenting at its unhinged finest. In a review shortly after the second season premiere, Sean Sebastian of Junkie said that although the crude animation and over-the-top voice acting might have discouraged some viewers to continue watching, Rick and Morty is exceptionally well made, and that the more you dissect it, the more you find it has to say. Todd Spangler of Variety gave the series a lukewarm review, saying that though it often seems frenetic at the expense of being witty, it represents a welcome attempt to dream just a little bigger. David Sims of the AV Club gave the series an A. In reviewing the first 2 episodes, he praised its clean, simple style of animation, and said the series has a dark, sick sensibility. He praised its effort to give each character a little bit of depth, and applauded Roiland's voice talent. Ratings. Rick and Morty has been a ratings hit since season 1, with viewership doubling and tripling over their first 6 episodes. The third season ended with the best ratings in Adult Swim history, an 81% increase in overall viewers over the second season. According to a Nielsen poll, the third season was the most watched television comedy of adults between the ages of 18 and 24. The president of Adult Swim said that Rick and Morty goes beyond just appealing to millennials, with statistics suggesting that people of every age tune into the show. The fourth season started relatively strong, with its premiere reaching 2.33 million viewers. However, interest soon appeared to taper off after the network decided to split the season in half, causing a steep drop in the season's second half, about a 40% drop in viewership from the third season. The fourth episode of the fourth season saw 1.62 million viewers, which was noted to not be impressive in its own right, but in that it showed consistent viewership, especially when competing against shows like The Walking Dead in the same time slot. The season 5 premiere episode was posted on YouTube and had 1.7 million views within the first 12 hours. The television premiere saw 1.9 million views. The premiere of season 6 was shown on September 4, 2022, and saw the highest ratings in telecast for women age 18 to 24 and 18 to 34, and non-sports telecast for male viewers age 18 to 24 and 18 to 34. The episode was also the number 2 most viewed non-sports program overall for viewers age 18 to 49. Awards and nominations. Other media and products. Possible feature film. Show creator Justin Roiland said in 2019 that he would love to make an R-rated Rick and Morty feature film. In June 2021, producer Scott Marder confirmed that the creators and crew hope to eventually produce a feature film, with Roiland stating that it is more a question of when, rather than if. In 2022, American filmmaker Zack Snyder expressed interest in directing a Rick and Morty science fiction movie spin-off series. On May 20, 2021, Adult Swim announced a short spin-off series centered on the Vindicators team previously seen on the episode, Vindicators 3, The Return of World Ender, to be in development, alongside spin-offs from other Adult Swim shows like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Robot Chicken, and Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell. The 10-episode series, Vindicators 2, was released in July 2022. On May 18, 2022, Adult Swim announced there would be a full spin-off series based on the anime shorts, directed by Takashi Sano. Cameos. Film. Television. Comics. On April 1, 2015, a Rick and Morty comic book adaptation debuted with its first monthly issue, entitled BAM! The series was initially written by Zach Gorman and illustrated by C.J. Cannon. Artist Tom Fowler wrote a multi-issue story arc that began in March 2016. Using the television series' established premise of alternate timelines, the first 2 volumes of the comic book expressly features the Rick and Morty of a different timeline, allowing the comics to tell stories without conflicting with the canon of the show. From the 3rd volume onwards, with the departure of Gorman as written and his replacement with Kyle Starks, the series switched focus to display the off-screen adventures of the specific Rick and Morty of the television series, keeping in the canon of the show, with the Ricks and Mortys of different timelines forming the basis for backup stories. On August 29, 2018, a 4-issue crossover comic with the fantasy tabletop role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons was released. The series, titled Rick and Morty vs. Dungeons & Dragons, is co-written by Jim Zub and Patrick Rothfuss, and art by Troy Little. A sequel mini-series, titled Rick and Morty vs. Dungeons & Dragons, Chapter 2, Painscape, was published in September 2018. It was written by Jim Zub and Sarah Stern with art by Troy Little. The Rick and Morty vs. Dungeons & Dragons Deluxe Edition, by Rothfuss, Zub, and Little, was nominated for the 2022 Best Graphic Album Reprint Eisner Award.